talk show, but we are here. We're ready to go talk a little golf in the thick of NFL prep. So if you're taking a little break, as I advised on Twitter, thanks for stopping in. I'm Ben Raza. That's Jason Roslin here from Awesemo.com, and we're here to talk about the European Open. What is going on, my man?
Hey, it is. It feels like DraftKings included didn't really care too much about the Euro contest because we had everything filled last week in like easy amount of time, and then they came out with kind of less than appealing contest, but still good enough to play, and huge NFL contest, of course, going on in fantasy draft. I think has something going on, right?
They absolutely do, yeah. So our sponsors, we want to give a quick shout out to them. As you know, they're offering rake-free fantasy, which is only available over there. And for a limited time, you can get a 7-day free trial, first $1,000 in entries. Use the promo code AWESEMO to claim those. And they're running a giant NFL tournament on Sunday. I don't want to predict overlay, but it seems like it's not going to fill. So head on over there, sign on up if you haven't, and let's get after it. Swing season golf is coming back next week. We'll see what they do for that. In the meantime, though, we do have, not the biggest pools in the world, but there's still some money up top to play with. We have a decent field. Some of the better Americans, a couple of them have come over, made the trip. Before we get in, and not that we're going to talk too much about this, did you catch any of the golf? Rory made quite a storm late to lose in the playoff.
Yeah, I caught some of it. I didn't catch much of Sunday, but I mean, really impressive. Obviously, Rory is playing on another level right now, and he's clear in his motivation and what he wants to do. Obviously, not closing it out, against Sebastian, no name, made up player, as you like to say, creative player.
Definitely creative player, yep.
But still, impressive to see Rory come out there after winning $15 million, after obviously partying on the plane ride over, coming out and just pretty much getting it done yet again. He'll be the number one player in the world. He is the number one player in the world in my eyes. I think he's better than Brooks right now. I know that he didn't capture a major, but I just think Rory, given it a head-to-head, is going to beat him 58 times. Maybe 55, maybe it's a little bit closer, but still, I would pick Rory over Brooks right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Team Rory guy, as you know, and he's focused, as you said. He has a goal in mind, it looks like, to get back to number one, and he's doing what he needs to do. He is not here. Fine, well-deserved break for him. But like I said, we do have some other guys, and I should probably off the top just mention where they are. They're in Hamburg, Germany. We go from the Swiss Alps, now we're in Germany. And this course, I think it's Green Eagle. Man, it's a long monster. 5 par 5s, which is, I know you're a golfer. I've never even heard of that. That's pretty unique setup right off the bat.
Yeah, and one would think that with 5 par 5s and how far these guys can hit the ball, that we normally get like a double digit or well into the double digit under pars. But there's 17 out of 18 holes that are going to come in with a water hazard that could come into play. So tons of that. And Hamburg, Germany is obviously not the biggest city over there. In Germany, but my friend who spent 5 years over there said that it's one of the best, if not the best, cities over there. So certainly a nice destination for these guys to come to. The tournament itself has bounced around. Was in Europe. It used to be the I think it was the European Masters is what they called it, or the European Open. European Open. Now it's the Porsche Open, and obviously Porsche coming from Germany. It's been there for, I think, the last 3 or 4. So, yeah, fun course. We saw Bryson DeChambeau. We're seeing a couple of these American, I'll call them stars. I guess Bryson's a star and Xander's as well. Go over there this time of the year. They're obviously getting a nice appearance fee. I believe also Xander's dad is either from Germany or somebody was stationed over here, so maybe there's that type of connection. Who's the top one off the bat, obviously, that you're going to mention it here in a second.
Yeah, it's nice to have a couple of familiar faces over there. Patrick Reed's another one. Paul Casey made the trip, and Kuchar. So it's not barren because, like I said, I will say after a long season of golf, I do enjoy a little break. And even though we're playing with Europe, it feels like a different, I don't want to say sport, but just building for DFS is so different. I don't know if it's just the cut being 65 guys or it's just there's no safety. You don't know who's getting through. It's wildly unpredictable, and it makes it really fun to talk about and really fun to build your teams.
It sure does, and I think the T65 really does come into play, and it's really a good testament of to what we're going to see starting next week. Because remember, the PGA Tour is going to that rule. So I honestly cannot recall the last time that I fully invested myself into Euro, which it's not like a ton of money that you can go put out there, but it's a decent amount. Where the cut percentage 6 of 6 was above 5%. I mean, it hasn't been. It's insane. It's insanely low each week. You are totally live. Now, I will say, however, you had a week like last week where Rory came in second in the field but scored 121 points. I had 6 of 6 in the Club Pro, did not cash. So it's not a guaranteed thing, but obviously if you have the winner and you're 6 of 6, you've got a really, really good chance to cash in Euro almost every single week. So obviously picking the winner is something that we always try and help to do.
Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback that, one of the positives, the other side of that coin, is I had 0% 6 of 6 last week, and I actually had a good week. And it's because you're not out of it. My 5 of 6s had Rory, it had Schwab, and those two, the winner was basically 0% owned outside of giant field tournaments. You can hang in a lot better because of how low the 6 of 6 is. So it's not close your laptop time on Friday if you're not looking at a 6 of 6, and that does make it fun, for a weekend sweat.
Absolutely, and it's a different game. Your sweat is over by Sunday at 2:00, or maybe even earlier, 1:00. So it is different. It doesn't take up your whole day. So hopefully by football you'll know exactly where you stand for Euro golf. So all right, let's I think we covered the course. It's as Ben mentioned, probably the longest course these guys are going to play on the Euro Tour all year. So I think that driving distance does come into factor. However, I'll do one plug. If you want to check out my first cut article, I put in the statistics from last year. And McAvoy actually was the 55th longest driver in the field of guys that made the cut. So nowhere real close to the top. Obviously, a driving distance at a long course will help you, but you don't necessarily need it. So right off the top, you've got the PGA Tour stars leading the top 4 in Schauffele, Casey, Reed, and Kuchar. And then you got Thomas Pieters also entering the fray above 10K. I really like him this week. He has really come on strong. The putting has been so bad, but over the last 2 starts has gotten so much better. And it's not even that good. It's just gotten better, and the results are showing.
He's very interesting. And just to, again, piggyback, I checked out your article, and you brought up Tani Hara, who was a good example of he's had success here, not a long hitter. I think it's more important. You're going to have to, in my opinion, gain off the tee, but it doesn't have to be with pure distance. Like, my first thought when I saw this course was like, oh, I'm going to plug in Ryan Fox. Can that work? Yeah, maybe, but it's not a prerequisite. Shorter hitters can succeed. But getting back on track, Thomas Pieters, I thought the course last week was absolutely a horrible fit for him, and he had a big Sunday, got in the mix, not to win, but almost grabbed the top 10, came in 12th. He won a couple weeks ago. So I certainly think one of the many appeals about the Europe is you can omit the top guys. You can start. We're going to talk about some guys in the 9K range in a minute, and I think you could start lineups there. But let me bring it up top a little for you. If you had to pick one of the, I'm going to call them the big 4, the guys we see on the PGA Tour, do you have a preference between Xander, Casey, Kuchar, and Reed?
So I'll start on the negative side, and I got a tip prior to it being shown on the television about Matt Kuchar's hamstring. Just a guy on Twitter was just like, hey, Caddy says that the hamstring is not 100%. They showed it on the television that week. It wasn't good. He played okay the first 3 rounds of the Tour Championship before totally falling apart again on Sunday and just finishing the lower half of the field. So why am I bringing that up? I just don't know that I trust him at 10,500 this week. So I'm basically throwing him out. I know he's a good player, but long course, I know he likes to travel. I just feel much better about going to Patrick Reed, who's got 2 top 20s here, playing really good golf. Paul Casey, we know it's coming off of a 3rd-place finish at the Tour Championship. So steady. I mean, if he putts like half bad, I'm not even talking about good. If he putts half bad, like 2 out of 10, he'll probably still make the cut and do damage. And then, of course, I think Xander, we know, is probably the most talented of the bunch. but he's never played here before, and he struggles sometimes off the tee, and he could find some hazard. So I guess that's going to lead me more towards Patrick Reed and Paul Casey, but definitely Xander over Kuchar, for sure.
I'm right in line with you. I wrote up, and you can check not just the DFS side, but I talked a little on the betting side. I have an article, and it talked about that exact point where, to me, Casey is the one who I feel you take everything into account. I feel most confident that even if he doesn't play great, he finds the weekend. With Xander being, I don't want to say he's a wild card because he might be the best player in this entire field, but he's the one where I'm not sure where to peg him. Kuchar is last for me as well, and Reed is just certainly a viable option. But as I mentioned before, you don't have to play any of these guys, and you're going to feel fine. You can start with any of them. Doubling up would be dangerously aggressive. We'll have to get to the egregious names in a bit, but you mentioned Peters, and then as we work down, we've got, this is where we get into the 9K range with Wiesberger. Rory Sabatini is still over there. Matthias Schwab, Biergaard, your boy Adri Arnus. Not without a lot of very reasonable plays in this little range.
Yeah, and that betting article is free for everybody and had a nice little 7.5 to 1 tip on Schwab last week. So definitely go check that out. I was impressed with Arnaud last week, or Arnaud. I think that, do you pronounce the S in Spain? I don't think you do, but I could be wrong. It could be Arnaud, but anyways, I've heard the American announcers pronounce it one way, and then the European announcers pronounce it the other way. I'm probably just going to go with what the European announcers do because they seem to be more accurate on this type of stuff. Anyways, impressed with him last week because his best game is off the tee, right? But he hit 82% of his greens, shot up the leaderboard, ended up in the top 10. This guy is boomer bust. So love him for a GPP setting starting at 9K if you're playing, the $100, $150, $300, or the $10. One of those. I think he's a great start, but this boomer bust scenario for him scares me for cash game settings. I know he's a good price for a cash game, but we've talked about, I mentioned him after the second place finish after the Czech Masters a couple weeks ago. I said, look, if you look at his stats after a top 5 finish, it's really bad the next week. Now, top 10 is a little different. So I will be playing him, but I won't be playing him in cash. Matthias Schwab, man, he looked so good pretty much everywhere. 8th, looked like he had a chance to win it at one point. You going right back to that, Wealth?
I have to. I mean, this guy is just, he led after Thursday and he hung in. It got very bunched up on Sunday. And yeah, he slid back a little bit, but he was right there. There's no question in my mind. Now he's starting to get priced very premium, but there's no arguing with this recent form. You just look 5th and 8th. He was 7th here last year, got into the mix once again. He just pretty solid player all across the board. Yeah, he could putt a little better, and his driving isn't what I'd love to see, but incredible iron player, timely scrambling, and like I said, this guy is just playing great golf. So I'm not going to jump off just because he's playing well. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm with you on Arnus, whatever this dude's name is, boomer bust. Guy's got talent, though. 2 runner-ups in recent months. He clearly can win on tour. We know that. They're probably my favorite from the range. Biergaard is the one I have no feel for. We know how aggressive he is, length off the tee. His year has been so interesting. When he felt like he peaked when he beat Tiger in the match play, and then now he's kind of not the best form leading up to this.
So first, I'll just mention Wiesberger, my thoughts on him really quick. He was 126th in the field in the putting stats that I'm looking at, which takes the average of, again, these are archaic stats comparatively to strokes gained putting, which, again, I just haven't found the course level data on it for exactly last week. Again, if you know where it is, go ahead and let me know. I'll incorporate it. But 2 stats that I looked at were putts per GIR and average putts per round, and he was ranked 126th on average of those two. So obviously he putted terribly last week. Hit 70% of his green. So he missed the cut. I think you're going to get an ownership discount there. And we don't talk too much about ownership on this show about Euro because it's really hard to predict outside of the chalky guys, right? We know Xander's going to be 25% owned. Same with Casey, same with Reed, probably a little less for Kuchar. Peters will probably be around that range. So I think you're going to get a discount on Wiesberger. I think it's an interesting bounce back case because he's fine on his driving distance. I don't love him though, but I would say that Bjerregaard, I like the par 5 sense. I don't know why he hasn't Oh no, he's played here. Middling stats. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'd rather just play Schwab. I think he's playing better golf, and it seems like Schwab's got a chance to be a better golfer overall.
I'm with you. That's really what it comes down to for me. You can make a case. We talk about this on the PGA Tour. When you're talking about the cream of the crop for a field, you can play any of these guys. It's just priorities. And my priority is to get some Schwab, get to Arnoose. There's some guys in the high eights kind of as we work down. When we mentioned, we'll talk about Bjork. Alexander Leve loves this course. Second, 13th. Not playing great in the sense he got cut last week, but before that was showing some form. I got caught in that trap. So there's some options, and I don't think Bjerregaard for me makes the cut unless I build a lot of lineups, which I don't think I'm going to be doing. Anything else in this range before we kind of start inching our way down?
Yeah, see, Bjork is interesting. 3 straight top 30s, all in the 20 range, but no breakthrough, right? You want to see it's okay. I think that's where I'd use him in a cash game setting. Yep. He seems like he's found his form. He's a great iron player. Statistically, it's his best at least. So Levy, again, I think he's probably boom or bust, but yeah, he loves this course. I mean, sees that. So I think I would a GPP lineup, Arnoose and Levy, especially with their recent form of missing the cut and having in the top 5. I definitely like that as a start and balance. Now, what do you think about Troy Merritt? Troy Merritt and Rory Sabatini. Their Tour de Europa continues. Both played pretty good last week. Both didn't putt great.
Troy Merritt is a guy, I mentioned this last week. It's very difficult for me to kind of conceptually grasp where he should be priced. Is he because we don't see him at 8,600 against stronger fields, obviously. And then last week he made the cut, didn't do much. I'm gonna I don't want to say hedge it, but to me he falls in the Bjork category where feels kind of cashy. He's playing good golf. Not sure he busts down the door and gets right into the mix, but I feel pretty confident about him making the weekend. And as we talked about, earlier, and we were saying in tournaments, in cash, it is pure. If you are getting 6 of 6 in Euro, I promise you will be having a nice year in cash. Your goal is just get them through the cut at all costs. It's very difficult, but that's what we're trying to do. So Troy Merritt, to me, fits that mold. Sam Horsfield, I think we both realized, was just wildly underpriced last week. He was sub 7K, and he wasn't great, but he paid off that price. Now he gets a big bump.
Yeah, he does. And he's priced with, Bobby McIntyre, who has run into a string of less than a field in golf, back-to-back missed cuts. But we know the talent is there with this guy. Top 10 at the Open. He's had a win earlier this year too. So this guy's got a ton of talent. Maybe a little bit of a cash versus GPP setting, but I think the peak in Horsfield was last week, coming off of back-to-back top 10s. I'm just not quite there. I wasn't there last week. I just took the fade there and went to Guido Migliozzi, who we'll talk about in a second. And I'm going to go right back to that again this week. I just don't see a need to pay 8,400 when I got 2 guys that I'm much more comfortable with playing at 75 and 7,400.
Fair enough. For me, I would rather play Andy Sullivan, who was super disappointing last week, opened 4 over 74, rebounded with a 4 under 66 on Friday and missed on the number, which, again, is that great? No, that's not what I wanted, but he missed on the number. He gets in that weekend, you're singing a whole different tune, he'd be way more popular. So I don't mind going back to a guy that he's made you look at his recent form, he's making cuts at a really nice clip. As we work down, we get to our first. When I say a lot on the show, I don't know who this is. This is one where I mean it. Who is Cormac Sharvin? That doesn't sound like a real person.
Yeah, that's definitely a little bit of a made-up name.
Yeah,
and I'm laughing because Ross Fisher finally made the cut.
Yeah, of course he did. Ross Fisher, no respect. This is a weird range because you just mentioned we've got guys with Ross Fisher competed in WGCs, and then we have Cormac Sharvin, who he has minimal appearances on the Euro Tour, young gun from Northern Ireland, apparently.
So, okay, he has shot up the world rankings list this year. I'll say that. So he's been hanging out on the Challenge Tour the last 2 years. Finally, I'd say really broke through maybe since week 19. So in the last 15 weeks, last 4 months, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 9 top 25s in 11 events. The other 2 were miscuts. So it is only 1 miscut, all top 25s. Obviously has gotten the promotion, but to throw him right in at 8K in his first start, and you and I have never heard of him, yeah, this is kind of a step up.
It is. I'm looking at his little blurb, and he played in the Kenya Open, okay? And he played in the Irish Open, which is a very respectable tournament, and he played well. But that's a very minute sample size. I rarely, if ever, take guys that I know nothing about, and I certainly rarely, if ever, take them at 8K. So that's someone I'm gonna have to do some more digging on. But right now, and I've seen this guy's name thrown out on Twitter a bunch, and I got to him as well. Lucas Herbert Abear, whatever this dude's name is, the Australian. He is 8K, and I think he sets up fantastic for this course.
Well, I apologize. Yeah, the duty for Sharvin did play well in both of his starts on the Euro Tour. So I'm maybe a little interested.
Prodigy.
Yeah, maybe a little bit interested. I'm going to have to go dig a little bit more. But Abear, coming off of a good start, 29th here last year, we know he's got tons of talent, and we know he's one of the longest in the field. Although this year he's only ranked 38th, so maybe he's starting to focus a little bit more on the accuracy. However, interested. Paratore, though, is really interesting to me.
Okay.
The guy can light it up with the putter. Made 3 straight cuts now. Came in second place here last year. And just something says to me that he's peaking a little bit. Now, I'm like, are we a little late? Did he peak last week? I'm not sure, but 71% of his greens and 3rd in putting. 45th in driving distance on the year. So he's kind of checking all of those numbers for me. Green and regulation has been his worst stat this year and hit over 70% last week. So I think I'm going to hope that the sentiment on Twitter and through the industry goes to Abear or Herbert, whichever one you want to go.
One of those 3.
One of the 3. I think Benjamin Abear is the Abear one, and this is Herbert. But I could be totally wrong. I think I'm going to try and go for the ownership discount with Paratore.
Interesting. Yeah, so I dug on Herbert, or whatever this dude's name is, a lot. I actually like him in the not outright market, but to grab a top 10, maybe something like that. He had 4 double bogeys last year here, and he came in 29th. So that was something that caught my eye. If he can limit the damage, because this is, I think, what we both
water balls to me, yeah.
And that's really what this course comes down to. If you keep it out of the hazards, you can score. I know the holes are long, but they're very gettable. But you did mention Paratore, and when you have a guy who's a very good putter, as he is, when you see the irons, again, we don't have the strokes gained, or at least I don't, to the effect of what we normally do on the PGA Tour. When we start seeing the irons start to click in, obviously it's a good sign. And you may be right. You may get him at the fraction of the ownership if it steams. It's very hard to predict that over there. God, we mentioned last week, and we both, for the most part, I think, stayed away. Julian Surrey is really not playing well. I looked at him again, but I really can't get there.
50% of his greens is a little bit better than 34%. But we mentioned that it's really bad with the irons right now. Talented kid, but just has nothing going for him. When you got guys like Richard Sterney, who's played well here right next to him. I saw you write him up. Give us a little 5 seconds on him or 10 seconds on him.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting guy to break down. South African who he has 6 wins on the Euro Tour. But then you look, a lot of it was in, 5, 7, 8 years ago. He's not, I don't want to say he's super done. He's 38. He's still got some years left. But his best golf, he was 4th in a WGC. He's got some experience. But the thing I like about him, he excels on par 72s, which this obviously is. He excels on long courses, which this is. So this should fit his eye. He's played the course before, and he's playing decent golf. It's not a stellar year for him by any stretch, but he has made some cuts, and he's going to a course that the last 2 years he's churned out quality results. So it's a name that caught my eye. He's not going to be popular. I'm going there. Again, I think it's actually a decent outright. I'm not going to lie. Very aggressive, of course, but when we're talking, 80 to 1, 100 to 1, you don't really need to break the bank to get a nice return.
No, exactly. Top 10 and you're getting really nice
Absolutely.
there. So, yeah, I found that to be interesting with those two guys kind of paired right next to each other this week. Because Surrey's just playing terrible, terrible golf right now, and we know he's much better than that. Ryan Fox, you already mentioned, made the cut last week. No, he didn't. Sorry, missed.
I thought that too. He was like cruising, and then it was just like, wow, he made a 9 or something obscene.
Yep, putting 75% of his greens for the first 2 days. So I might jump back in on Ryan Fox. Hopefully, we'll get an ownership discount, and hopefully he finds the putter. The thing that I wanted to bring up is this course, because we're getting the -10 winner or right around there. I think it's going to play close to the Trophy Hassan Dew tournament, which we covered because I think it was an off week for the PGA. So I think we both covered that, where you saw a ton of the ball strikers rise to the top because you didn't have to make as many birdies to try and keep up with the leaders, right? So I think that I'm really going to focus on that. And these next two guys in the range that we're talking about now, in the 7,800 to 7,400, I've played a lot and I've talked about a lot. It's Guido Migliozzi and Sean Crocker. Crocker bounced back after the withdrawal of the 28th place in 28th place, excuse me. And Migliozzi, I believe, came in the exact same thing. They're ranked 2nd and 4th in the field, I think, in tee to green. So definitely interested in both of those guys. I'm not really interested in anybody else between Fox and them. Southgate, I was big on last week, and he got crushed in putting. I mean, it was so bad. Worst putter in the field, 155 out of 155 measured golfers. Did hit 75% of his greens, so maybe there is a chance for a bounce back. But do you like anybody else between those guys?
Not really. I looked and most of them are playing pretty poorly. Quick shout out to you. Props for Lorenzo Gagli, who is someone you brought up. Really good last week. Missed a couple timely putts, so he easily could have broken through and won. Not sure I'm going to, people are going to see that, and I have a feeling jump on. I'm not going to chase that. For me, I'd rather go with more of a known commodity. I have to, by reputation, mention Maximilian Kiefer. He's not playing well, so I'm going to keep it to probably just the large field GPP. Guy's not a long hitter, but he's still, historically, when he's on, can take care of par fives at a really nice clip. And that is what you need to do here. So if he was in the low sevens, I'd have more appeal, but he's in the mid, 7,500. I would rather go to the guys that you mentioned who are just playing better. Do you have one more guy? Because I've seen you used him. I think you were on him last week. Xander Lampard. Any love for him?
Yeah, so Lampard popped to me because his iron play continues to be good, but putting was so bad, 101st, and which probably puts him one of the worst guys that made the cut. Interested again, he had 74% of his greens, but a little bit more expensive. The Kevin Na that looks like Pat Perez of the European Tour, Victor Dubuisson, hit 81% of his greens, but was terrible with the putter. Came in 43rd, withdraw the week before, came in 39th the week before that. He's very consistent, but he does withdraw a lot. I've seen him withdraw a couple of times in this. So interested there. Xander Lampard again, the putting is bad. If he could have a good putting week, it looks like based off his other stats, driving distance, let me check on that.
He scores like a wild man. That much
Yeah, he does. 24th in driving distance on the year. So, yeah, he checks all the boards again for me. If we can have a good putting week, he could be a top 20 candidate for sure again.
There's one more guy who we'll get to in a second that is very simple. He reminds me of Xander Lampard a lot as we work down. Quick shout out to there was another guy, and that's what was really interesting about last week. There were a lot of names that I have not seen too often. Kalle Samuju or whatever from Finland, right in the thick of it. Another guy I'm not chasing, but just very impressive to see these guys, be up there with Rory and really fighting to break through on the European Tour.
Yeah, he was a guy actually that I played at the Trophy Hassan Dew and really helped me. I think he was in my second place lineup. So fitting in maybe on these rather tougher courses, although last week it didn't play that tough. But it played tougher, I think, than maybe you and I thought it. I think the winning score was 14 under. I thought we were getting to 20. No problem. So
It seemed that way.
Yeah, Samuje, I think we're pronouncing it right. And please, you can certainly make fun of me about it. I'm not great at it on the PGA Tour. So when you get in these all these guys from Finland and Sweden, Denmark, I'm gonna have a lot of difficulty. Anyways, he putted superbly last week. Was third in the field in putting. So I don't know. He only hit 68% of his greens. So unless he's really firing at pins and he's just missing off the hinges, I think I'm not going to chase, like you said. I think it would have been an awesome buy last week, but obviously, but I think I'm going to stay away this week.
Fair enough. As we work down, now we're getting into that low 7K range, high sixes. Is there anyone because this is where it got pretty dicey for me. I didn't see a lot that I liked.
Yeah, so Dean Burmester goes from hitting 82% of his greens to 53% of his greens. Terrible. I mean, that's just what you get with Euro. You get so much inconsistency with these mid-level players, I'll call them, right? Where I think on the PGA Tour, the mid-level players, I think, are a bit more consistent with their best statistical numbers, right? Maybe they'll have a really bad putting week, and that's why they'll miss, or whatever the case. I just think they're a little bit more predictable. The Euro Tour is just so far off, and he gets a $600 price increase, does Burmester. I know his driving distance is fourth, and that is obviously going to excite people, but I'm not going to chase here. Let's see. The next guy that I'm interested in did not play all that well last week, but played okay. He's made 3 straight cuts. This is Joachim B. Hansen. And this is one, I got to change his name every time because each statistical place that I get from has his name differently. But 65% of his greens is not great. But I think at 7,300, you could take a stab. And then on the opposite side, Chauhan Kim hit 75% of his greens over the first 2 days, but was 151st in putting. So maybe a bounce back week for him. Those are just kind of 2 names. And then one name that I wrote up in my Make the Cut article. He's made 6 straight cuts. He's a young kid out of England, Jack Singh Brar. Made the cut. No, hasn't played here yet. All the starts have been kind of okay. 2 top 20s in those 6 straight made cuts, but I like the consistency. I actually think there's a little bit there. He's my last guy in my cash lineup.
Interesting guy. I saw that too because, again, and maybe it's because of the 65. You just don't see that often outside of the top Euro players. Someone make 6 cuts like that. I mean, does it happen? Of course it happens. But that's an impressive streak for a guy that's not well known. And they're not all complete garbage events by any stretch. He's played the last couple weeks and he's played fine. 14th, 37th, 33rd. These are results that you would probably take for 7K. So if you're looking for a guy that, I don't know if the pedigree's there. John Catlin is also there, who's someone you've talked about in the past. So no history to go off of at this course, but that's what we're going to have to deal with as we work down. One other guy, and again, I want to preface this by saying this is if you're building a lot of lineups for a deep large field tournament, Ben Stowe, he's another one who I believe is on the Challenge Tour, been crushing it. No, this is a huge step up. I think we all know that. I may dabble with one of these type of guys, not all of them. He is a name that I did come across I found interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy that we've seen a couple of times in WGC events, maybe he won last year, but has had a really bad year, but 2 straight starts. Now, let me see where this other start was. Is Jaco van Zyl? Jaco van Zyl.
He has a shady putter. That guy puts with a little mallet.
It's weird. Yeah, I'm seeing it now. So this guy, he's been on the African tour and bounced around. He had a win. Let's see. Where did he win? No, he came in second at the Qatar Masters a couple of years ago. He had 76% of his greens and made the cut last week, so maybe he might be finding a little bit of form. Again, he's 7,200. I'll dabble a little bit. But another guy that I think driving distance is interesting, terrible putting, 75% of his greens, though. It's this guy, Min Woo Lee. Let's just learn a little bit about him before I tell you. So he's been on the European. He's played a couple of events now over there. Looks like a really, really young kid. Played on the Corn Ferry Tour a couple of times. It looks like he missed the cut. Korean Tour. So he's bounced around on the professional tours. He's just interesting. He's made the cut a couple of times a couple of weeks ago at the Scandinavian Invitational. So maybe a little bit of Min Woolley, but not too much.
It's pretty scarce. Jocko's a guy, just to touch upon him real quick. I've played him a lot in the past, and I did look at him. He is one, and I think we've both talked about driving distance because it's important, but it's not a prerequisite. He's not a long hitter, but he's very accurate off the tee. So can he make up for it with just pure accuracy? I think that's very viable if you want to build some teams like that. But just know he's not getting to these par fives, especially the long ones, maybe in 3. He's going to be really behind the 8 ball. But the next guy, I've held off as long as I can. He can get to the par fives, maybe in 1 with the way he drives the ball. It's my good friend Callum Shrinkwin, who is a pure wild man. I wouldn't be stunned if he makes a lot of double bogeys, but this guy can score like no other. The recent form is as not good. He withdrew. He's coming back, but there's no doubting the top end ceiling on this guy. He is a pure scorer, and he can drive the ball quite long.
Yeah, do we see anything on his social media or Twitter as to why he withdrew?
I could not find it. The one thing I'm inferring, and you've talked about this a lot, on the European Tour, withdrawal is not that crazy. Guys start bad and they just withdraw. That happens all the time. It's not like the PGA Tour where people finish it out. You see 5, 6, 10 withdrawals all the time, or retires, or whatever they call them over here. So I'm hoping that he's in the field. Obviously, he must be good enough to play. I hope it's not a nagging injury. He's got enough problems as it is. His short game is weak, not going to lie. But just sub 7K, when you can get a guy with that kind of ceiling, it's always appealing to me just because of the pure scoring potential if he makes the cut.
Absolutely. Totally agree. 2 other guys that are in this range that one guy is popping on the model that I make, and the other guy is the defending champion. Richard McEvoy broke through last year here for a win. Not in good form, has not made a cut in quite a while. Looks like since July 6th, where he came in 64th. So it's been quite a while since he's earned a paycheck, but has made the cut each of the last 2 years with that first place that I mentioned. And then David Drysdale right underneath him. He looks like he's in pretty good form, actually, and he came in 10th here last year, coming off the 23rd. So I thought that was interesting, 71% of his greens. He's a guy, though, that's going to get there with accuracy, as you just mentioned, and being a good putter. So kind of maybe a little bit to the contrary, but it's not really bad in anything, and if he can find a good putter, he's maybe got a chance. You mentioned Shinkwin down there. He's first off the tee in this field.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. Guys,
yeah, a couple of other bombers that we know about down here. Let's see. We got Christopher Rayatan.
Yo.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Right.
There's just I have one more for you.
Yeah.
So maybe, with this, it's very, at least for me, when I'm writing up these fields, it's really labor intensive because there's 100 guys. I don't know anything about them, so I really have to dig. And when I was digging, the most confused question that I had on anyone is there is a guy in this field named Alan John. It looks like he spends most of his time on the Challenge Tour. He's been playing really good golf, basically minimal Euro Tour experience, and he was runner-up here last year. Incredible step up in competition. Now, he's not expensive at all. He's $6,700. And like I said, he was runner-up here last year, which, it feels like a complete outlier, but he's literally been here and done that. So I don't know what to make of it. He's playing great golf, but it's against much less competition than we see here.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely an interesting name. Another interesting name that, listen, he hasn't made a cut since the Belgian knockout, but his world ranking is 212th, which actually puts him in the top 30 of this field, but he's priced all the way down at 6,200. And I'm talking about Jake McLeod. I know it's a random name, but here's a guy that back at the Qatar Masters at week 10 was 139th in the world. That obviously was spurred by a win in Australia at the Jennings Open or something like that. And then a third the following week at the Emirates Australian Open, which is a good event. That was I think that was the one won by Abraham Ancer. Yeah, it was. It featured some other guys like Bianca Anand, Brendan Steele, Victor Hovland. So it had a lot of good guys in it. Great field. So maybe little course comp tied for 30th at the Trophy Hassan Du. So I might take some stab with him. 70% of his greens in the first 2 rounds last week before he missed the cut. Won't need to make as many birdies, so maybe I'll dabble with him. He's probably the lowest I'm going to go.
When you get down here, you're really going to find 2 things. You're either going to find a player that has some success or pedigree that's missed a lot of cuts in a row, and that's why they're down there, or you're going to find guys like Hurley Long, who another name, I'm beating this, that he's a Challenge Tour guy, beating up on lesser competition, and now he's stepping up. You're not going to find anyone that's been playing well on the Euro Tour down here, obviously. So I'm more in the bucket with you where I'll take a guy that's, I don't want him to miss 10 cuts in a row, but if he's missing cuts on the number, near the number, and he's got some real experience competing in a field like this, I'm more apt to say, you know what, if his ceiling is just higher than some of these Challenge Tour guys, where if they make the cut, it's very impressive, but how often are they grabbing placement points for you? And we see, especially in a course like this, yeah, making the cut is great, but if you're going on the water on the weekend, you're not going to be bracking up a ton of points to really make a big difference.
Yeah, this Hurley Long guy, he's from Germany. My guess that's why he's in the field. He's got a sponsor invite, something like that. So he's playing on the professional golf tour. He's not even on the Challenge Tour.
He played in this last year, and he did not play. He missed the cut. So there you go. Again, it's tough sorting through those names. Yeah, the professional golf tour. I don't know what that is.
Or pro golf tour.
Golf tour. Okay.
It's based in Germany. It's the 3rd level tour. So it's like the Mackenzie Tour.
Okay, fair enough.
He's killing it, but it's against guys that are, in a bad position and really struggling to make it, in the professional golf ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, the other thing, since we're doing this on Tuesday, it goes without saying, me and Jason we'll be in Slack. I'll be holding office hours tomorrow. So if you have any questions, you find us. We'll be breaking it down and talking what we end up doing in our rosters. And it's a perfect time to say, hey, chat, we love you for really sticking with us with Euro. That is impressive. With NFL, don't worry, we're going to have plenty of content with that. The schedule will be out as soon as possible. It's big things ahead, but feel free to jump in Slack. We hope to see you in there. But before we duck on out of here in a couple minutes, golf is coming back next week, and I know you have been working on something that's super important. I want to read it. We have 50 new, the tour is here. The guys have received their cards from the Corn Ferry, and you're doing a write-up on them.
Yeah, so awesome stuff that they put out 100K, even with week 2 NFL. 100K to first for the military green buyer. So Ben and I are going to be here 8 o'clock next week, just because I'm actually moving at the end of next week and going away on Wednesday prior to that. So they've moved it up for me nicely. I appreciate it. After that, though, we will be back to our normal Wednesday slot. However, what I've done is, so there's 50 players, and let's see, 34 of them are going to be brand new to most of you, unless you've been playing DFS for a couple of years. We've got some returning guys like Zach Blair and Mark Hubbard that are going to get back to the PGA Tour that you may recognize. However, I just put out, before our show started, a model that shows all of the Web.com Tour stats. The players that do not have stats listed on them are the PGA Tour players, or somebody like Victor Hovland and Tom Lewis, who basically just made it in 3 starts. Really
Tom
great.
Lewis.
Yeah, really excited about Tom Lewis over here. He's popped a couple of times. We've seen him in WGC, so great to see him win the Corn Ferry Tour Championship. And then tomorrow I'll be coming out with the top 25, and then the early next week I'll have the full 50 write-up. In my ranking of them, you're going to likely see all 50 golfers next week, would be my guess. Maybe not all 50, but probably very close. So playing for 100K, obviously there'll be other good prize pools out there as well to follow it. So certainly will be a valuable resource that'll, of course, be free to everybody. So be on the lookout for that. Really excited to do it. I love learning about these new guys.
It's a great way to do it because we've seen time and time again people. I'm just throwing some names out there: Bryce Garnett, Cody Gribble, guys that they get Cameron Champ.
Austin Cook. Yep.
Yeah, they win early. You rack up the FedEx because there will be times. Fast forward to the next FedEx Cup where it's like, how is this guy like 70?
Yeah,
missed 30 consecutive cup. It's because he came in third at the Greenbrier all the way back in the swing season. That's the edge you can find. Justin Harding, brutal, missed by 0.1, I believe, because Lanto Griffin missed a putt on the last hole. Doug Gim, your boy.
I was going to say, my boy got in because of it, though.
Very clutch by him.
Yeah, and he's a guy that we talked about as one of those guys that has that extra gear, but just couldn't find it on the web. Maybe he wasn't motivated. He came in second at the Farmers Insurance, a very well-attended event, almost won it. So good to see Doug Gim getting on tour. I'll be excited to watch. Maybe he didn't come second. Where did he come in? I think he came in the top 10.
He's done some. I mean, he was hitting hole-out eagles at, I believe it was the U.S. Open, like there was no tomorrow.
No, that was the Masters. Yeah,
that was so insane. But no, like I said, a lot of these guys are very talented. We know that. Yeah. Scotty Scheffler is a name that everybody's going to know soon enough if you don't already. And Hovland, we saw, he's ready to play. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. He was T2 going into Sunday after 63, 73, 67, shot 75 on Sunday. That dropped all the way back to T20. However, sorry, I knew he was up there, but wanted to correct myself before I got in.
No, he's clearly a talented guy. But we're going to have all that and more. Any final thoughts before we bounce on out of here for the Porsche Open?
I think Bryson jumped out to a first-round lead last year off of very similar form. I wouldn't be surprised to see Xander go out and do something very similar, but I don't know that Xander's going to win. We saw Bryson drop back after the last 2 rounds and finished in 8th. I kind of see something like that for Xander and maybe something like Paul Casey going the opposite way of starting off in 30th and then climbing into the top 5 by the weekend. But like those 2 guys, and I like Patrick Reed to be his top 10 right around there.
It's a really interesting field. That my final thoughts would be, I'm more willing to roll the dice and fade the top in Euro just as a blanket because with unpredictable conditions and courses that with a lot of water, a lot of big numbers lurking, we see you can get a lot of guys who are off the wall to really compete. So if you want to build more balanced, I say go for it. I will start some lineups with Arnoose this week. It's not to say that I'm fading those guys at the top purely, but don't be afraid to sacrifice a little and then bolster. You can get 6 quality golfers by doing that and really, the Paratore, the Herbert, those type of guys mix and match in the mid-range and see what comes of it.
Oh, boy. I just looked at the weather, and it's going to be windy, very windy, an average of 20 miles per hour from 10 a.m. all the way through basically 3 p.m. with gusts all the way up to 30. That's Thursday. Friday's a little bit less, but we're going to get gusts up to 30 in the mid-morning. Wow, it's going to be a well over par cut this week, way over par.
And for we've seen the Open is what it is, just the way they do it. But my advice with that is don't try to pinpoint the weather. It's just if you're building enough teams, T-stack. And we talk about this all the time. Because I don't think that you can really quantify, all it takes is one slight deviate. I mean, just look, different weather type of thing. But we've seen with this hurricane how things can change so rapidly. The weather, the wind, we'll see what it does. But I'm not going to get too crazy trying to pinpoint a couple-hour window for Friday of when certain golfers might face the best conditions.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be tough for everybody out there this week, no doubt about it. Which just means total carnage. If you like that, you're going to love this week. I love the Trophy on Do It. It was madness that week. Looks like we're setting up for that again this week. Absolutely.
On that note, we'll say bounce on out of here. But special again, thanks to FantasyDraft for sponsoring the show. Go check them out. The Rake Free is definitely a different wrinkle in the market, and with the giant NFL contest, if it overlays massively, it's just silly to not hop in there. I'll be doing that along with everybody else. But good luck this week. Find us in Slack, like the video on your way out. And like I said, we appreciate everyone stopping by. We'll be back next week for the swing season. It's here already.
Yes.
See you then, everyone.